switched. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here because I've heard so much about this meeting, but I'm never able to attend because I have 3 kids at home. So quiet time is one of the most enjoyable and beautiful things that we can benefit from in our Christian walk with God. I want to share a little bit of my own journey. I think I've only got half an hour, or 45 minutes. Okay. I'm going to share a little bit of my own personal journey. So I grew up in church, born baptized when I was a baby, and grew up in church. And I was pretty, I attended every week and I took it seriously. But it was only when I was maybe in my late teens that I actually realized, and maybe to some of you this will be so obvious, you're like, of course, but it only clicked in my head when I was about maybe 17, 19, something like that, that God actually is living and wants to communicate with me, with me. It's not just a bunch of rules that I'm supposed to be following, and God is real and I'm supposed to keep him appeased, but God actually knows me and wants me to know him intimately and is ready to respond to me in lifetime. And that for me, that when I experienced that was life-changing. Here's two of my, and probably my third one is right behind. This is my gang. Okay, so I remember I attended this prayer meeting with a bunch of young teenage boys who I'd seen their lives completely change. Within a year, I saw these 2 boys, they used to be very rough and were obviously very resentful of their parents, that their parents were dragging them to church, didn't enjoy church at all, were not pleasant people to be around. And something changed in them, something totally changed in them. And one day, one Sunday, one of them who I'd never spoken to in my life, I was actually a little bit afraid of, bumped into me at church and he's like, oh, there's this Bible study after church on Sunday, why don't you come? And a prayer meeting. So I was like, okay. So I said yes. I don't know why I said yes, but I went. And then I remember in this prayer meeting, these guys were talking in their prayer. They were having free prayer like God was in the room. And it wasn't our Father who art in heaven, hallowed. It wasn't these memorized prayers and then, okay, next. No, they would pray and almost wait to hear God's answer. Not to hear an audible answer, but to experience, or I don't know, to interact with God. I just felt these guys are not praying memorized prayers and that's it and ticking the box. These guys are praying like they're actually anticipating some sort of reply now or in a week or in a month, but they are anticipating a reply and somebody's interacting with them. And then I went on to learn about quiet time, which is part of the same package. Prayer and quiet time are hand in hand because prayer is talking, receiving from God, and quiet time is really hearing from him. So who here knows what I mean when I say quiet time? Does it mean anything to anybody? Or it's is it, you feel oh, does that mean I'm sitting in the library? I don't want to say stuff that you guys already know. So quiet time, which again I learned about when I was a teenager, I had no idea, I didn't understand what it was. And it doesn't matter what you call it, it doesn't have to be called quiet time. But what it is a time when you sit at God's feet, you by yourself, in the gospel, Jesus says, when you pray, go to a room, a quiet room by yourself and sit with God to pray, talk to God. So quiet time is when you're doing that. Quiet time is not communal prayer in church, which is really good. Communal prayer, memorized prayers, all really necessary and very helpful. But so is quiet time. So it's spending time with God when nobody around you knows that that's what you're doing, and it's just you and him. And sometimes that can feel really daunting because we're not used to spending, first of all, we're not used to spending time by ourselves without our phone, at least. We're maybe used to sitting with our phone and scrolling, but we're not used to just sitting in quiet. We're used to having the TV on, the radio on, people, media, whatever. So quiet time is just sitting quietly with the word of God and then opening your heart to God and telling him, Lord, I'm here to hear your word. I'm here to hear whatever you want to say to me, and then diving right in. I think last week, probably Abuna talked about reading, I don't know how many chapters, 10 chapters in a row. I don't know if that's what he was talking about for mystical reading. Quiet time's a little bit different. Maybe some people would think it's easier, some people think it's harder, I don't know. Quiet time, there's this quiet time guide that I think has been passed around. And there's a partner one that goes with it that has the actual readings, but I think you can find it online. Every day, it's like a preset Bible reading that's maybe 5 to 10 verses long. It's not long at all. It is not 10 chapters. It's very short. It will take you 10, 15 minutes. And the way that you do quiet time is with a heart of expectation. You are expecting that God is waiting for you and waiting to sit with you and waiting to say something to you, not in an audible voice, but through his word. And he does want to reveal more of himself to you. He's not a distant God. In the Old Testament, there were a few saints, Enoch, Abraham, where God describes the relationship that he has with them. I'll give you a few of the references. So in Genesis 5, about Enoch, who was around just before Noah, it says that Enoch walked with God. And there's somebody else, I can't remember who, it says they walked in the garden together. And of Abraham, God describes Abraham as my friend. It actually says, my friend, this is my friend. Someone who, when my kids come and tell me, oh, that's my friend, mommy, that means it's somebody who's so special to them and they're almost a little bit protective. God describes Abraham as my friend. So God has friends and he looks to us to be his friends, he actually enjoys our company and is looking for us to enjoy his company too. He's not a God who is very far away, which is sometimes what we experience because we're so busy and so rushing. And the concept that God would want to talk to me and want to spend time with me seems surreal. The concept that with all of my baggage, all of my history, all of my sins, that God would want to communicate with me sometimes seems too good to be true. Or I feel like, no, there's no way I'm going to hear him, I'm going to understand him. That's only for Abuna. Abuna is the only person who can hear God. My spiritual guide is the only person who can hear God. That's actually not true. Because people call the Bible a love story. And it is God's love story for us, but our ears have become very dull of hearing. I want to share an experience with you that happened maybe a month ago. My kids were actually with us. We were in New York City, and we had just had communion at the New York City church there, and we were walking with our uncle and some family members. Our uncle is also a priest, and he was walking in front of us just downtown in the street, and suddenly this woman screamed the loudest blood-curdling scream at the top of her lungs. We all froze. We were maybe about 15 people. We all froze dead in our tracks. It was a homeless woman. She was standing here, and the priest, Father Mercurius, was standing behind her, maybe like 2-3 meters, and they were all walking in that direction. And she didn't see him, and she just screamed at the top of her lungs. And everybody in the street stopped, froze in their tracks. And then she stomped up to him and then screamed again. I don't know, there was something, we think, this is our explanation, we feel that she was probably demon-possessed, and the demon in her felt that there was a priest here and couldn't tolerate his presence. So he prayed on her and whatever, and then she walked away. But that experience, even though I know this and I've heard this so many times, that experience reminded me that the spiritual world is very real. But our eyes are so clouded and our ears don't hear because we're so consumed with the world around us, with our work, with our, the physical, with my home, with my food, with my studies. That's what is consuming most of my mind, that I don't even realize that there's a spiritual world. That if someone says to me something like that, I think they're like in La La Land. But this experience, there was a guy who was standing next to us who wasn't part of our group who was shocked. And he couldn't believe, it wasn't just the people who were Christians who understood that something very strange happened. Even the passersby. Yes, Elise? Yeah, it happened to Daddy many times. Abuna's had many experiences like this. But the reason I'm sharing this story with you is when you realize that the spiritual world is real, evil against good, then yes, the demon screamed and was Israel. Well, God is even more real. And God is dying to have beautiful, life-giving conversations with us. I don't know if you have your Bibles with you or on your phones even if you like. There's a beautiful story of the woman by the well, John chapter 4, which this Samaritan woman. So this is a story where Jesus, he was walking with his disciples, and he told them, I'm hungry. Can you go get some food for me? So he sent them out to the town, to Samaria, to go get food, and he stayed by this well in the middle of the day. Now his disciples were a little puzzled. Why is he staying? Why isn't he coming on this? He just sat there in the middle of the heat of the day by this well. And the Samaritan woman came in the middle of the day with her bucket on her shoulder to collect water. In the middle of the day, why? Because she was a woman who was considered an outcast, who was considered a really bad sinner, really bad woman. So she doesn't want to bump. I'm sure you've all had this. You don't want to bump into anyone that day because you're just not in the mood to talk to anyone, not in the mood to socialize, don't want to see anyone. I don't feel good about myself. I don't want anyone to see me. That's how she felt that day. So she's going to collect water from the well in the middle of the day, and she doesn't want to see anybody because she's just so ashamed of who she is and hating her life. But who's waiting for her at the well? Jesus. And Jesus doesn't leave her alone. He asks her 2 or 3 very simple questions. But these 2 or 3 beautiful, I encourage you to read this passage by yourselves at home. I won't go into detail in it. But the 2 or 3 beautiful questions that he asks her, thank you. And he asks in a very gentle, non-judgmental way, thank you. Help her to completely open her heart. And like he tells her, go get your husband. She's like, oh, I don't have a husband. I've been married, I can't remember how many times, 3 times or whatever. I can't remember what it was. He, just by these little tiny probing questions, which are done in such a gentle way, he helps her to empty all that is troubling her, all that is bothering her, and spill it out. And within 5 minutes of this conversation, she's like jumping for joy and so happy and overjoyed, and runs back. She's like, I'm going to go tell everybody what you just did for me, and goes back to the town to go tell everybody about this amazing man who told me everything about myself, who knows everything about me, and dragged all of her friends out of the town to go meet him. Why? Because she had a life-changing, healing, soothing experience with him. When you do quiet time, that is what he does for you almost every time. And if he does that and you don't notice, he's still, like we talked about last week, there's something mystical happening even. But the world is bombarding us with noise and asking things from us and taking things from us and burdening us. Jesus is doing the complete opposite. He says in Matthew 11:28, beautiful, beautiful verse. Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. For my yoke is light. My yoke is the bar that they would put on cattle and animals to do harvest. So it's heavy. A yoke was heavy. It was made of wood or metal, I don't know. It was very heavy to have on their back, and they would carry it to do the harvest. And he's saying, come to me. My yoke is light. The commandments that God gives are light. His way of life is light, and I will give you rest. Quiet time is exactly that. Quiet time is, imagine yourself like in a storm. When we are in the world, your day to day, going to university, going to work, whatever you have to do, taking care of your house, whatever you got to do every day, it's a lot of responsibility. It's a storm like around you, a hurricane around you all the time. He is saying, come to me and I will give you rest. And he does. And that's why the suggestion for quiet time, if you can, but if you can't do that, that's fine, any time will work, is early in the morning. Wake up 20 minutes earlier. And it will be very hard the first week that you do it. And you will find a million things fighting you from doing it. But wake up early. You will find your day is going to be transformed. It's going to be completely different. It's like you've gone and sat with your therapist in the morning and just taken some medicine for your soul and taken some ammunition for that day to face what's ahead of you. And wisdom, taken some words of wisdom from God. Yes, Elise? Do you want to say something? Yes, we do have that picture. Oh, you're right. So quiet time is going and sitting and believing him when he says, come to me, you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And he does. Now, it's not just all touchy-feely and, like, oh, how does he do it? A lot of the time, and I'm 100% sure, and I promise every single person here, you will experience this. It doesn't happen every day. I don't open the Bible every day and I'm like, oh, that's the message that God wants to say. But it's happened enough times that it's worth it. It's happened to me enough times that I have my little flyer or leaflet that has my, those 10 verses a day, and I'm facing this big problem or a big decision or something I'm trying to navigate, and I go and read this passage, and I'm like, oh my gosh, those are exactly the words I was just telling my mom. That's exactly how I was feeling. Oh my gosh, that is not a coincidence. I'll tell you one time, I remember I was going through a very difficult time in my life. And if you ask anybody who's been doing quiet time for years, everybody has experiences like this. And God will do it for you. Just don't be disappointed if it doesn't happen the first time, the first week. He will. He's ready to speak. And he is speaking every time. It will just all fall into place at the right time. But I remember I was going through a very difficult time. And my habit in those days, I was again a teenager, was to read the Bible before bed every day. I would read those few verses before bed. That was what worked for me at that time of my life. And I remember I was facing some very scary exams, and I just couldn't. I had like brain freeze. Couldn't study for months before I sat these exams. I just couldn't study. It was too terrifying for me. And my memory is not amazing, but until this day, I have not forgotten the Bible reference. It was John 16, and it was 10 verses. And when I opened it, I was like, oh my goodness. It was John 16 verses 20 to 33, I think it was. But he says in it, a woman, when she's labor, has sorrow because her hour has come. But then once the baby has come, she has great joy, and her joy no one will take from her. When I read that, I started bawling my eyes out because I was like, this is too much of a coincidence to be a coincidence. It's a God incidence, people say that. And when you do quiet time regularly, you will find that happening to you a lot. And especially I used to keep these little cards, especially if you write down the verse that touched you the most on that card and reread it during the day, because something will happen during the day that you didn't realize this was directed towards, but it will guide you in that event. But if you read it and then you've forgotten it for the rest of the day, you will miss out on connecting whatever God was sharing with you in the morning with what's happening in your day or your week. So the way the how-to of how to do quiet time, because I know sometimes the Bible seems very daunting. I would say start with the Gospels, because the Gospels are very simple and straightforward, and it's Jesus's words, and he is the core of what the Bible is all about. And sit and read those 10 verses or however, or that little passage. And if you don't have the passage references, read from, like, some Bibles have like bold to bold, like read the section or read the little story. And it's usually in the Gospels, it's usually going to be like 15 verses. It's usually short. Like, read the story from the beginning to the end of that story, or the miracle from the beginning to the end. And read it one time. Then read it again, because you're going to find the first time you read it, you're going to find, oh, my mind just totally drifted. I didn't even pay attention. What did I even read? This happens to me every day. I'm like, I don't even read. Did I even finish the passage? Oh my gosh, I did. And I don't even remember what I read. So then read it again. And when you read it again, imagine, okay, well, what if I were Jesus and I was meeting the woman? How would Jesus have been feeling in that time? What would have been going? Why did he do what he did? And then read it again. And the third time you read it, put yourself in the shoes of the woman in the story. Okay, but so then how would she have received those words from him? How would she have felt? What did that mean to her? And when you read it 3, 4, 5 times, and try and really read every word, because you'll find you can read the same passage 20 times and each time get a different message from it, because there's so much depth and richness in here that you will have read. Like I said, I grew up in the church, grew up reading the Bible every day, and I still read passages and I'm like, what? That happened? Like, there'll be like a one verse in the middle there that you read so many times, but you never noticed. And to you today, that verse carries so much meaning in your current situation. So read each verse in depth. Let each verse sink in and be anticipating that God is eager to speak to you. And he is a living God. He is not a God who is far and distant. No, that is not our God. Our God is a lover. Our God is living. He is interacting with us. He's all-powerful, and he is very real. Very real. This isn't theory. It is not theory. This is the real world. Like, what the physical world is trying to make us busy with all the time, that is not actually reality. This is reality. And his way, Jesus' way of behaving and thinking and interacting is so different, so contrary to the world's. Like when you read how, like a lot of people have the wrong assumption that Christianity is very judgy and that it's very right and wrong, and like these Christians are like looking at everybody else at their back. Well, that's not how Jesus was at all. Like when you read how he interacted, he sat with the sinners and the tax collectors. Like he sat with the people who were considered the worst of the worst. A lot of Christians, we don't live like that. But if we actually read our Bible, like, and let it sink in and read, okay, wait. Okay, I read tax collector. No. This is the one time you're allowed to open Google. What does it mean to be a tax collector? Like, read a little bit deeper. What does that mean? A tax collector. Sometimes we miss some of these little details, but these little details carry a lot of weight. What does it mean? A Samaritan. Why does it say Samaritan woman? They're not just putting, in those days, it was a lot of work to write, to scribe these books. They didn't have printers and photocopiers, so it was all written by hand. And they, like, one copy was extremely precious. And to copy that copy, to hand it to somebody else, again, was hand copied. So to write any extra details unnecessarily was too much work. So why does it say Samaritan woman? Why is that word in there? Because it has a much greater context. To come from Samaria means that you are considered a very bad person who wasn't following the laws of Judaism, who the Jews shouldn't even talk to. So the fact that he opened conversation with her means that he is welcoming all sinners. That means that if I'm coming and I've done the worst sin in the world and I'm so embarrassed and I want to talk to Abuna about it and I feel like I should never go to church again, and then I read this verse about the Samaritan woman, I'm like, hold on. He waited by the well to talk to the Samaritan woman, the worst of the worst. So when you read, don't just bypass these words. No. Why is that there? And you'll find, if you really want to, you'll find you can spend hours on 10 verses. There's so the New Testament was written originally in Hebrew. Sorry, did I get it right? I always get it. Old Testament's Greek, or am I saying it the wrong way around? Oh, wrong way around. Sorry. It's good in models. Old Testament was Greek. No, wait, did I do it again? I did it again. Old Testament was Hebrew. New Testament was Greek. So this is a translation. So you want to get deeper into the passage? Again, it's just 10 verses. Then you can go, there's something called Strong's Concordance on the internet. It will tell you, you look up John 16 on Strong's Concordance, it will tell you the Greek words, and then you can look up that word. Okay, Samaritan, or woman, or angry, or forgave, or what was the Greek word? And you'll find that it has much broader meaning. And when you replace it with the broader meaning, you're like, oh my gosh, this verse carries so much meaning to me in a different way. Because the translation cannot always carry the weight of what the original language was trying to convey. And you can, if you want to go even deeper, you can read books that like talk about the Middle Eastern context in those days, so that you can get even a deeper understanding of, well, when Jesus behaved in that way at the Passover, like, why was that so meaningful? But again, you don't have to, quiet time can be even more simple than that. Literally 10, 15 minutes. The most important thing is that my heart is receiving and is open. I'm not just doing it because that's what I've been told is the right thing to. No, I'm doing it because there's a living God waiting for me, eager to spend time with me because he loves me so much, and he is alive and he is living and he is communicating with me. I don't have to have a PhD in theology. I don't have to have been a Christian for 30 years. I did not have to grow up in the church. No, God will communicate with me because he loves me, and he is a loving God, and he has brought me here today, all of you here today, because he wants to talk to you and be in your life, and he wants to walk with you. Like, you will find when you do your quiet time, you will find that you will remember some of these verses during your day, and you will find it almost like God is guiding you what to do during your day. You will have a few instances like this where you're like, oh my gosh, wow, I can't believe that just happened. something exactly related to what I read before. Write it down. It's something that helps me a lot is to have a journal, and I write in whatever style, short, long, whatever you want. I write my prayers, and I write the verse that stood out to me the most from the quiet time, and I will go and read it again, reread it. And maybe a week later, I will remember, oh my gosh, that verse was exactly what I needed in this situation. Yeah, and also I heard you were talking about last week, the mystical reading of the Bible, that it's a cleansing. Reading about Jesus makes us more like him also. Just living, immersing yourself in, and he's a living God who still is doing these stories now. It's not these stories happened 2,000 years ago and they're not happening. No, these stories are still happening. Abuna John told me a story, true story, that like advice that he got from his father confession, which I love this advice. I can't remember the context which he gave the advice to him, but he was telling him, if you take the words of God literally, God will take his promises literally. So what does that mean? When you read something, it says, go sell all that you have and follow me. I don't have a PhD. I'm not that knowledgeable. I don't know. But this is what it says in the Bible. Yeah, it sounds really crazy. Sounds so extreme. But this is what it says in the Bible. Lord, I want you so much that I don't know if this is the wise thing to do or not, but you know what? I'm willing to do even that if it will mean that I get closer to you. And we have saints in the Bible who've done things like that. So I'm not saying go and do that, but what I'm trying to say is, as much as you want God and are willing to give up anything for him, you will receive more of him. The holiest people are the ones who said, you know what, I really want to be close to God, so I'm actually willing, when I read something, I'm actually willing to live it and to do it. Obviously, take the advice of your spiritual guide in everything, especially if it seems extreme. But the first step is be willing to say, yes, actually, you know what, Lord, if that's something you're saying in your word, you know what, I know the world would think I'm totally cuckoo to do this, but this is something I keep reading in your Bible. Like, I keep reading this theme of blessed are the poor in spirit. I keep reading this theme of forgive 7 times 77. What? Like forgiving people who've done bad things? I keep reading this over and over. You know what? Maybe I'm going to do that, because obviously this is something that you are teaching me, Lord. And if you do it, you will experience him a lot more, because he will see, oh, I taught you something about me and you did it. I'm going to teach you something else next. When you're teaching a child math or English or flute, for example, or martial arts, or when you're teaching them something, if your student responds and does the thing that you've taught them eagerly, straight away, what does it make you want to do? It makes you want to teach them more and do more and invest more. God's the same. God's the same. If he sees that you are responding positively to what you have understood from him with the guidance of your spiritual guide, but he sees that, no, this person's willing to fast, even though it's hard. This person is willing to really struggle against this sin, even though it's really hard. This person is willing to, get rid of half their closet and give it away to the poor because they felt this is what I'm asking. Then God will bless you and reveal more of himself to you. This is a spiritual rule. This is just a spiritual fact. If you take a step close to him, he takes 10 towards you. This is a spiritual phenomenon. Anybody who is very holy, that's all they've done. They've just said, well, I really want to know God. I really want to experience God. I want to be close to him. I'm hungry for him more than anything. I'm willing to do what he says. That's it. And the words of God are so different to the world. It's a different way of living. And it's the only way that actually brings healing to the soul and actually makes sense to the soul. But there's a really good book I recommend called Screwtape Letters. Has anyone read it here? Yeah, a few people. So the Screwtape Letters talks about how it's really beautiful. It's by C.S. Lewis. It's a head demon writing letters to a junior demon. He's trying to teach him how to trip up the person the little demon's following a human. So the chief demon and the little demon are exchanging letters, how to trip up this human being and how to make him not be close to God. And a lot of it is really mundane things that they do. They just try and distract him with the newspaper. Or, you know, like his mind is beginning to turn towards God and he's having some deep thoughts about life. So the bus comes, like right when he's having these deep thoughts about life, and then he gets on the bus, pays for his ticket, and forgets the deep thoughts that he was having. He was just about to make some, you know, like inner conviction, follow an inner conviction, do something to follow God. And that is what happens to us all the time. Like we are bombarded with untruths. Let me say untruths. If you dress in a certain way, you will be so happy. If you drive this fancy car, you will be so happy. If you achieve this, you'll be so happy. If you do this, if you have this many friends, you'll be so bombarded by all of this. Whereas this is actually what we're looking for. Like St. Augustine says, our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you. Our rest is in him. And he says, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden. And he's saying it's so, so simple. Spiritual life is so, so simple. But we find it very difficult to do. I'm speaking about myself too. We find it so difficult to do because we're pulled in a million directions. It is so simple. When you get home tonight, just pull out your Bible and just sit with him 10 minutes. I promise you, 10 minutes, but with your heart totally open, ready to receive. You will receive. And do it again and again. And be like the persistent woman who said, I am not leaving. I am not leaving. Until she said to the judge, until like you do whatever I wanted. I'm not leaving, Lord. I'm going to come again the day after and the day after and the day, because I know that you are real. I know that you will interact with me, and I want to have you in my life, Lord. I want to interact with you. I want to experience you. I don't want you just to be a theoretical God. You know, I want to know you like you know me, Lord. He will. Like there's nothing more enticing to God than a prayer like that. The danger of group things are very good and should never, never give up group church activities, ever, because that's a protective, you know, thing that when you're not doing quiet time for whatever reason, you got distracted, lazy, you know, being in group Bible studies and, you know, group services helps to protect you. But it's not enough by itself. You need to have your one-on-one time with him, and the beginning will be hard, but I promise you, if you keep at his word and take him at his word, you will hear his voice. So anyway, I'll finish with this beautiful verse. Jesus in Matthew 23, he says when he's entering Jerusalem, he says to Jerusalem, 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 how I wanted to gather you, like a mother hen gathers her chicks under her wing, but you were not willing. Like he's saying to the Jews, he's saying, I wanted you to come close to me, but you weren't willing, and instead you crucified me. But he's saying that to us as well. He's saying to each one of you by name, I died to gather you under my wing. I care for you so much. There's some beautiful verses in the Bible. It says that he collects every tear that falls from our face in a bottle. It's actually a verse in the Bible. The Bible's full of these beautiful gems. We usually only know the very common stories, which are in the gospel, but actually the Psalms and everything. The Bible is full of beautiful goodies that reveal more of who he is. I don't know if you've ever wished. I wish this all the time, and then I catch myself wishing this. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, God, I wish I could have just seen you. I wish I could have just known you. And then I'll be like, oh, have you even read every verse in the Bible cover to cover? Have you? Before you say, I wish I could have, he has given you himself and revealed himself in here. Let us be smart. Be the smart one. Be the smart one who says, well, Lord, I'm going to take you at your word, and I'm going to read this, and I'm going to dig as hard as I can dig. And if I find a wall where I don't understand, I'm going to go find somebody who can explain it to me, because it's in here for a reason. There are treasures in that verse that I want to find out what they are. They're not just, like I said, each word was a lot of work for them to scribe by hand over and over again. So it's in there for a reason. Dig and you will find lots of treasures. But start with the gospel, because that's the most beautiful, and you'll see how different Jesus is to everything that we've known before. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments. Elise? That's true, yes, sorry. That's like a public confession. When I take her to school, I take her late, but when my mom takes her to school, she takes her early, yes. Any questions? Or does that seem realistic to you, or does that seem out there? Sorry, you're going to say something.
Could you clarify what the Lord maybe means by giving us rest? Is that just like we're able to fall asleep easy, we're relaxed or comfortable? What does that mean exactly?
It's a very good, excellent question. It means what you actually need at that time. So sometimes he will challenge you. And it will feel like, oh, why did you rock the boat? Like sometimes he will, I remember one time, I can't remember what the passage was, but I felt like God was talking to me about caring too much about makeup. And I felt like it. So it was rest, because I followed through and listened, but it took a while. So it led to rest. But sometimes it can be challenge. Sometimes it can be, you need to give this thing up. And usually when it's a give something up, you hear it a few times over and over, because it's hard to do it straight away, usually, or for me at least. Sometimes it can just be peacefulness. But a lot of the time, having his perspective on things brings you so much peace. It's not like getting high or something. It's like somebody tells you the truth. You're hearing lots of lies, and a lot of these lies are really disturbing you, like just without you realizing even. Without you realizing, all these lies about you have to look a certain way, you have to behave a certain way, you have to do it's putting a lot of burdens and pressure on us. And then you read him and he says, no, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's what matters. That's what I want to invest my time in. I want to be pure in heart. I don't want to be the most fashionable person in town. No. So it can differ for each person at a different time. I don't know if that answers the question.
I guess he gives you what you ought to be, or where you ought to be at, or what you ought to be doing.
Yeah, like he guides. He's your guide, and it says your word is a light unto my feet. I don't know if you've ever tried walking in the dark. You keep stubbing your toes. It says in the Bible, your word is a light to my feet and a lamp to my way. So he's shining, and a lot of the time he's only shining, which is frustrating, only shining a light on the first step, not the whole way. You can't see where it ends, which is really frustrating sometimes when you need, to know, what am I supposed to be doing in this big decision? Which job do I take? But sometimes he just gives you courage to do something, or gives you wisdom in decision making. But his word is a light because it's truth. And we need to see truth. We need to hear truth, and we need to be hearing it a lot so that we think like him and have the same mind. It says, put on the mind of Christ. The only way to put on the mind of Christ and the only way to be heaven focused is this. It's the only way. And participating, and heaven focused is truth. Everything else is lies and death and sin. There's just he says you cannot follow mammon and God. You just cannot. The mammon is another word for the world or money. You just cannot follow both. That's truth. Whereas the world will tell you otherwise. You can follow both. No, you cannot. That's just black and white right there. I don't know if that answers. Yeah.
Do you have any advice on clearing your mind from distractions at the beginning of quiet time, how to actually quiet your mind, and when distractions come?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So don't be discouraged if distractions come, because I think 99% of us will have distractions. And like I said, every time I sit, I didn't realize that I read it, and I have to read it again. First of all, just don't give up, and try and be alert and realize, oh, I got distracted, and then just refocus again. And that happens, refocus again. Another thing that can help, for me, I used to like to light incense or a candle, just set the mood. It's this is all very superficial stuff, but it helps, so there's nothing wrong with it. I would put incense from church because it makes me feel like I'm in church, or put an icon of Jesus in front of you and sit in front of the icon for 20 seconds and just look at him to quiet your heart a little bit, or maybe start with writing a prayer. I like to write my prayers because I find when I speak, when I like say them in my head, I get distracted. So for me, writing helps me just to focus. Sometimes you can draw a picture of Jesus. Like look at, like if you have a simple picture, just try and sketch it, just to help yourself, just to get focused and quiet and still. And everybody's going to find different. Some people like to knit, just to focus, like get your hands busy, you know, so that your mind can focus on God. And I'm sure people here have different ways that they quiet, you know, their minds so that they can read, and we can share together. I don't know if anyone has any other, suggestions. Oh, does anyone have any other suggestions of how to refocus your mind and not be distracted? The Jesus prayer, the Jesus prayer. I'm saying that for, a minute or two before.
You'll naturally, once you sit there, like everything will kind of dissipate, and you'll be able to focus.
Yeah, and put this away. Put this away, because that's. Oh, sorry. Wait. Sorry, I forgot. Sorry.
So I wanted to ask
Sorry.
a question about what is the difference between quiet time versus like the prayer time that we might have like with the Agpeya? Are they distinct things? Are they like do you do
Yes.
separately?
So it's totally up to you. They are different because the Agpeya is praying, but you know what? You can receive from God anytime you want to be in His presence. You will receive from Him. Agpeya is more you kind of praying the words of God, but you actually most of the Agpeya is all from the Bible. So it's almost also like quiet time, but you're kind of more in a state of pouring your heart out to God, but you will inevitably receive from Him too. Like you will hear His voice through the Agpeya prayers because it's the Psalms, which is all Bible. It depends on how much time you have. Like maybe you don't have a full hour or a full half an hour in one slot to do Agpeya and to do the Bible, to do quiet time. That's okay. Just snack as much as you can. Just get it done, like in whatever way you can. If I only have 10 minutes in the evening to pray Agpeya, so I'm going to pray Agpeya in the evening 10 minutes, and I'm going to read my Bible in the morning for 10 minutes. Excellent. Find what works for you. Don't give up. You tried something, it didn't work. Try and move it around a bit until you find something that works. You just don't give up. That's what I would say is the key. Yeah, sorry. Oh, it's the same question. Sorry. Yeah. Oh. That's a very good question. That's a very, very good question. So the quiet time schedule that they have, I don't know if it's still online, that one is like, it's not random. They've selected specific passages, but they're not in order. So it will sometimes be something from the Old Testament, sometimes from the New. What I personally like to do, I like to read in order. What I've learned, maybe I'm wrong, but what I've learned is it's better not to just kind of, so this is always tempting, especially when you're in a pickle, to kind of say, okay, God, answer me today, and then, look away and open at random. So I don't recommend that in general, actually. Yeah, well, I've done that before. Like my quiet time didn't say the answer I wanted, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to try again, and I'm going to try again. So I have done that, for sure. But the general recommendation is have a system and stick to the system. So if it's pre-selected passages that are from like a journal that suggests passages every day, do that. Or if you just want to work your way through the gospel in order, that's what I like to do because I feel like I'm walking with Jesus, and I find the gospel is really easy to read. But yeah, have something that's pre-selected by, So you're right. So if you find that the genealogy is just putting me off and totally turning me off, just skip it. It's fine. Leviticus, get first into, that's what I'm saying, the gospel is so beautiful. But if you really want to try, which I think it is good eventually for everybody to try, to read some of those hard passages, the Catholic Church, Father Michael Schmidt has read the Bible in a year. And what he does is he has every day, he has suggested Old Testament passage with some harder Old Testament passages tacked onto it, which are prophecies. And he's pre-selected them, they relate to the story So that way you can get through all the hard passages because he tags it on to the easier stories and he explains them. But don't start with Leviticus if it's, but let me tell you, even the genealogy is full of goodies. Even that, but it's hard to find. You have to research, but even that is full of treasures. Like if you go and look up that person, and the more you read the Bible, you'll be like, oh my gosh, that person's in the genealogy. Oh my, and wait, and then if you start reading the cross references, another trick, in the middle of your Bible, you see, like it will say verse 11, and then it will have another verse that cross references it, like it will be written in little. Read it. If you have time, go read it, because that will have a little bit more information that is actually related to where that original passage, and it will help build a bigger picture for you. It's like endless. It is endless, and that's why people read the Bible from when they're little to when they go to heaven and still find new goodies in it. Welcome. Does someone else have their hand up, or did I misremember?
Hi, wanted to say thanks for your talk, because you touched on a lot of things that were on my mind coming here tonight. So there were two words that really popped for me. One was conviction and the other was surreal. And so I've been struggling a lot in my conviction lately. Not my conviction in terms of belief in the Trinity and living Christ and such, but conviction in terms of the idea of having a personal, individualized relationship with the Trinity. That's the surreal part. So that, and I find that the more I reflect on the barriers to my conviction, that is the deepest one. So how do you have any advice in terms of how you cross that canyon between moving from sort of logic and fact and concept and the idea of the Trinity and,
Yes.
and being a grain of sand, compared to that, and into a place of authentically, heartfelt, visceral,
Personal.
I don't want to say belief, because all these, I don't think there is a word, but you seem to have a sense of it. So I'm wondering if you could share that.
It's an excellent question. Very good question. So, how to if you really believe, you do believe it, but the step to making it making it personal seems so far off. Is that correct? Yeah, it seems like far out. Yeah, like it seems. Yeah, yeah. So I would say what I would meet people who you trust, who have a walk with God, and hear their stories and like hear what their experiences have been, and then just like I'm saying, just do quiet time. You will have your own experiences eventually. And some people are more, they cry more easily. Some people are more, sensitive. And so their spirituality is going to reflect that for sure. Like they're going to have, or they're going to interpret everything in a way that maybe somebody who's very practical wouldn't. But I'm a very practical person. So like a practical person might, be more dubious and more cautious about calling everything a miracle, but they have experienced things that they think are, miracles, but maybe not as much as other people have, because their threshold of, classifying it as that, they're more cautious, or that's just, they're more practical or whatever. But I do promise you, because I know he's real, because I have, and I am a very, I don't know those who know me very well, I'm a very practical person myself. I'm not a very emotional person. I am emotional, but not like very. And I've had experiences in my own life that there is no other explanation for them. There just isn't. And these are like, I would say probably have had 2 or 3 experiences like that, but over the span of 30 years. So it took a long time to have those experiences. And I don't think you should wait to hold on to those experiences to have faith. I don't think so, because that's not how faith works. I think like what you're describing, like it makes sense, it's logical. So I think this is real, and the risk of not following it, if I don't think is real, is bigger than the risk of following it. So let me follow it, and then you will have it. I promise, You will have experiences, but they will not be every day. But the trick is, write those experiences when they happen, write them down, because you'll forget in 5-10 years, you know, and it's like an experience here or there, but it's such a big experience that it's life-changing. And like surround yourself with people who have also had experiences, so people who you trust. You know their head's screwed on right. You know that this person is, you know, they're not going to be making something like this up. You know, this must be real. So-and-so is also saying it. And there are stories, like there are beautiful biographies of people who've had experiences like that. But I'm actually so grateful you asked that question, because I wanted to mention also, I don't know how it feels after you get baptized as an adult, but I was wondering this when I was driving. Is it sometimes anticlimactic? Because after you get baptized, it's like this big event that you've been working towards for months, and everyone's congratulating you. Maybe you guys can feed back and let me know. Everyone's congratulating you, and you've been fasting for like 12 hours, and you've been standing in church for 6 hours, and then you get baptized, and it's like, everyone's clapping, and then you go home, and everything's the same, and you're like, it doesn't feel like anything happening, and you don't have any, you know, you didn't cry, you didn't have any big feelings or whatever, anything. So I wonder, sometimes does that feel like, oh, you have like this emptiness for a moment. You're like, was that real? Was that not real? Our faith is not driven by feelings. Like you researched, you read, you asked questions, you investigated, and the conclusion you came to at the end of it was, no, this is real. And if this is real, I'm going to get baptized. It doesn't need to have feelings. Like having a personal relationship with God, it will have feelings, but it doesn't need to have feelings, if that makes sense. Like it's not the feelings who are driving the boat. No, it's like we're also logical people. So like it's a mix of the two. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question a little bit, or.
Yes, and in fact, you said another word that really popped and put my question into perspective, and that was bigness. And that's really like the nut that I've been trying to crack, the wall I've been trying to get over, which is not the faith part, not the belief part, but the bigness part, the surrealness
Of God,
right?
Yeah.
And all of these works.
Yeah, there's in the Old Testament, I think, is it Elijah? Elijah, I believe. He was really upset. Something happened, and it really upset him. And he was praying to God. I don't know where it is exactly. If somebody knows, they can tell us the reference. But he was so upset. He was praying, and he was almost suicidal because of what had happened. Even though he was a great prophet and doing the work of God, and he was just so upset. And he was praying, and then it said, and then there was thunder and lightning and a big storm and winds and this, and then that all went away. And then the voice of God came in a still, small voice, like a quiet, very whispering almost. So sometimes God's voice, it's not dramatic. It's not like a letter comes down from heaven. Sometimes that happens to some people, like they have these very big experiences, but that's rare. It's actually rare. But sometimes it's just this nagging feeling. It's literally just a nagging feeling that this is what is right. A still small voice. But we just have to prick our ears to pay attention to it and just walk in the way that you feel you're being nudged. And sometimes it's not very obvious, but you just have a gut feeling that this is what is right. Yeah. I hope I was helpful with that. Yeah. Sorry, I know I ran way over. I'm so sorry. Thank you, guys.